Gurmaigad Jan Corlia, agus Nyadauta be Nafuin Realta Shaw, Yanan Krakiash Yere, Canarti Chiley, or one canary tea tags, Strahajagus, Kai much stop or Hurla Shaw, Tamalu Toka Kora a score in the Della, Sinn Féin, Honjeri or Hurla Shaw, Actan Realtas, Egg Jewel 2, Agus a Coronatan and Malu Shin. Minister, last week it was revealed that an investment fund bought up to 85% of an entire housing estate in Balgriffin in County Dublin. And these were homes that should have been on the market for buyers, but were instead snatched away from them by investment funds that have the financial power and enjoy the tax advantages that home buyers can never hope to compete against. So in response to these events, the Taoiseach said he would look into this and see if more needed to be done. But Minister, you and I know that this was not an isolated incident, with funds snapping up homes at an alarming rate right across the city and beyond. Only last year, the Minister for Finance, Minister McGrath, was told by his department that hundreds of homes were being snapped up by these funds and that this government's measures were not working. Figures given to me by the Department of Finance show that the number of family homes snapped up by these funds has increased each year, with more than 620 homes bought under from struggling home buyers last year alone. 620 homes in 2023 alone, Minister. And so far from what happened in Belcamp Manor being an isolated incident, there is a Belcamp Manor being snapped up by these funds every single 30 days. And that's what's happening, and it's happening under your watch. In less than 3 years since this government, half-baked measures were introduced, over 1,200 homes have been snapped up by these funds. And these are homes that should have been available for workers and families to buy, to own and to live in. And yet you have decided to do nothing about it. You feigned action. Minister, in 2021, you yourself said, and I quote, "We need to make sure that we don't have first-time buyers competing against large investment funds." You said that it is not a situation anyone could stand over, or indeed that I, as Housing Minister, could stand over. But you have stood over it. You are standing over it because you know exactly what is happening. The funds are buying hundreds of homes every single year under the noses of first-time buyers. In May of 2021, the government scrambled to respond. In truth, your response paid lip service to the issue. A new tax was introduced to give an appearance of action, but it was a bluff. I warned that the tax was too low at the time, that it wouldn't stop investment funds from snapping up homes that should be available for workers and families to buy, and that has proven to be the case. And now, when you're confronted with the facts, you decide to do nothing about it. This Parliament, can ensure that a vulture fund never ever buys a home that should be available to workers and families to buy and live in. We can do that by increasing the stamp duty that applies in them and stopping this practice for once and for all. And that is the action that we in Sinn Féin have put to your government in the Dáil yesterday, yet you are opposing it. So the only logical conclusion that anyone can reach that this is a government that is on the side of the vulture funds, that this is a government that is happy for this to continue, that is happy for 85% of an entire development in Dublin to be snapped up by an investment fund and rented out at extortionate rents of over €3,100 per month, and to add insult to injury, they won't pay a penny tax on that rental income. This is a government, obviously, that's comfortable with the fact that over 1,200 family homes have been snapped up by investment funds in less than 3 years. A government that is comfortable with the fact that struggling home buyers are being priced out of the market by these funds. A government that is comfortable with the fact that these funds are increasing their reach and snapping up more homes than ever before. So, Minister, I ask you, how can you stand over this when you stood in the Dáil in 2021 and said you would never stand over it? It is happening in a scale that we've not seen before, and yet you're deciding to do nothing. What will you support Sinn Féin motion and stamp out vulture funds buying family homes from under the noses of first-time buyers?
Oireachtas also on Keshner and Kate Shears Tashi Tavak Gora Goriname Ahru Erdli Planala and Tais Agat Fuishin me Mialtana Gavila is a Fahain Cosni and Tia Chowley the Dina Ainer August the Chowley Freshen Tan Tahru Shin a Gubber Tais Agat Fuishin Freshen August Ta Conil Erle Egg Bresh le Dahada Mila Chak Anish Gwil Sheed Deal in Ainer. And, you know, winning on Kesho, Latia, Lakiad Suller, Ahri May and Dlee, to is agat Fuishin freshen. Ima Horamsha is a on Rud a Gahimid, a Vrahnu, a Rash, no on coin, in Team Leshin. But it is correct to say, Deputy, and what you neglect to mention is that planning law was changed. And I changed planning law in May 2021. And since then, 40,000 homes up to October this year have the owner-occupier guarantee. What pertains to this particular case and some others relates to planning permissions that were granted prior to that date. That was the reason that the stamp duty change was brought in. So what you've neglected to mention, and your colleagues in all of the commentary to this, is that we have changed the law on planning, and that is actually working. What we need to look at, and what we are looking at, is the rate of stamp duty applicable. Now, I think we also need to put this in context, Deputy, too, is if we look at the just less than 1,200 homes that have been purchased in that period of time since I brought in those planning changes that related to planning permissions granted before the change in planning. That's out of about 125,000 property transactions, less than 1%. Less than 1%. So the planning changes are working. And that 1,200 homes is actually equivalent to the 1,200 homes that in one town alone, in Fingal, that your party objected to in Donabate, and your party colleague is in the front row there. So let's talk about context here. We're for first-time buyers. We've measures to help first-time buyers, like the Help to Buy grant, like the First Home Scheme, like the vacancy grant that you and your party would abolish all of them. You say you're for first-time buyers, Deputy, but in every single measure you bring forward, the measures that are actually working, like the First Home Scheme, nearly 8,000 registrations there, 42,500 families who've actually got their own tax back for their deposits. Sinn Féin would abolish it. And there seems to be a little bit of conflict between your housing spokesperson and your party leader on this, because your housing spokesperson says he'd get rid of them straight away. Your party leader then says quietly, when she's talking to people, well, there'll be no cliff edge. The reality of it is, Deputy, is more first-time buyers are now buying properties, 600 a week drawing down their mortgages now, the highest rate since 2007. And also, it may disappoint you to know, Deputy, that later on today we'll publish the commencement figures for new homes for December. And it was 3,167 commencement notices received in December, 76% increase on the previous December. And that's actually the highest December commencements on record ever. And what that means is 32,000 homes in the last 12 months have been started. That is progress, Deputy. Progress on new housing delivery, social housing being delivered at a rate that we haven't seen in over 50 years, affordable homes for people for the first time in a generation, and first-time buyers being able to buy. So whilst it does certainly anger me to see 46 homes sold in Belcamp, 46 homes there sold in Belcamp, that related to planning permission that was granted in 2019. And someone who will be familiar with the law, I would expect, Deputy, yourself being a member of this House for quite some time, will understand that those retrospective changes to granted planning permissions cannot be made. You don't want to say that, but 40,000 homes have been protected by the owner-occupier guarantee. And what I will be doing in relation to the stamp duty levy, that is something that does need to be reviewed. Absolutely. But let's put this in context. You're saying there's a Belcamp Manor every week. There's not.
Thank you, Deputy.
Okay? 125,000 property transactions. About 1,000 properties purchased there. Less than 1%, Deputy. We back first-time buyers, you don't.
Deputy.
Minister, you can huff and puff all you want. There is a Belcamp Manor happening every month under your watch. You know it. The figures stand over exactly what I'm saying. There was 623 homes bought by vulture funds, bought by investment funds last year alone. That is the equivalent of a Belcamp Manor every single month. The majority of those purchases are in the region of Dublin. 70% of completions last year, in the first 9 months of last year, are apartments. You've exempted apartments from all of your planning regulations and stamp duties. Vulture funds are free to go in and buy as many apartments as they wish under this government. In terms of houses that were completed in the first 9 months in Dublin, it was just over 2,600 homes. Some of those were social homes, so would never be on the market in the first place for ordinary buyers. Yet Vulture Funds bought 623 homes, and you try and pretend that this is a small impact, less than 1%. It is nothing like it. It has having a significant impact in the Dublin market, and you told us that you would not stand over it. You know about this. Belcamp Manor is no surprise. Your minister was told in the tax strategy papers last summer that this was happening in the scale of hundreds. Your minister was told that the tax measure wasn't working. So the solution is, Sinn Féin have argued back in 2020 to increase stamp duty on Vulture Funds to a point where they will not do this. We have a motion before the Dáil. You're voting against it. You're feigning outrage. You're feigning that you will do something. You're voting against the solution that will stop Vulture Funds buying these properties from first-time buyers.
I've simply given you the facts, okay? The facts. Relax, Thomas, for a second. I've given you the facts. No one wants to see family homes being purchased. That's why I made the planning changes. And whether you like it or not, those planning changes are working, because we have over 40,000 planning permissions granted now with owner-occupier guarantee on them, which means they cannot be sold on a bulk basis. That's working. Why are 600 first-time buyers able to buy properties a week and drawing down their mortgages at the moment? You might answer that. Why they're able to do it is because of the support the government are giving. Now, we will look at this tax measure, and I think we should. But let's not say that this is an issue that is predominant right the way across the country. You've got to put it in context, Deputy. It's 1% of all property transactions. Now, we're investing as a state €5 billion in housing this year. Every single measure that we've brought forward on housing you've opposed. The Land Development Agency you've opposed, right the way through. Sorry, they have actually, Thomas. And look, whether you like it or not, commencements are up, completions are up. We're going to exceed our target for 2023 as we did in 2022. There are still issues there, but this government backs first-time buyers.
Thank you.
You don't. All you do for first-time buyers is every measure that's there to support them, you'd abolish. So maybe, and then your party leader comes up with this great plan of dropping every house to 300,000. And Louise O'Reilly was asked on TV last week, how would that be done? She huffed and puffed through that. No one's actually told me. You might use your time when you come back in afterwards to explain to the House the Sinn Féin plan to drop house prices to 300,000. How would it work? How long would it take you? You might explain that.
Please.
Finance spokesperson.
Can we a little order, please?